Hello and a warm welcome to another episode of the Third Half Podcast, a podcast where we talk all things sport.fun, covering both football and American football. I'm Palmer and I'm joined today with my co-host Laird. Laird, how are you doing this week, mate?
I'm good. We were just talking about what we wanted to talk about, and it seems like the list just keeps going on and on of things that we could discuss, which is like one of the best parts of this platform is that there's always something that you can talk about.
No, definitely. So I suppose on that note, we might as well jump straight into the deep end, shall we call it? We were both just kind of discussing the fun token. Obviously, the fun token's been out for a little while now. We had the ICO many weeks back, and we had the TGE and the token launch recently. And the chart's been dancing, shall we say, and kind of ups and downs. But I think the larger part that people are noticing are the down slopes. And I'm just looking at the charts here, and time of recording, over the past week, it's kind of down 14%, and over the past day, it's down 11%. Kind of what's your thoughts on the immediate when looking at those charts and those numbers?
So it goes two ways, basically. One is I don't look at the chart ever until somebody else mentions it. Like I don't think about the fun token price-wise at all. Again, until someone's like, hey, look at this. And it's like, oh, okay. I have a weird, maybe it's not weird at all, actually, but it feels a little weird when I didn't participate in the ICO at all. I got obviously some fun token distributed in the airdrop, and I haven't bought any since then. Like I haven't bought any. Like every token I have is from SportDotFun. So thank you for that. So right now, looking at like my fun rewards, I'm on level 4, and it's a pretty significant increase to level 5, I think. Actually, I don't know. I basically look at my current fun bonus, how much I have, and I wait until the end of the tournament to find out exactly how much I have. And I just kind of go from there. It feels very passive to me, which I think is the point. But then when somebody's like, man, the fun token price is pretty low. And I look at that and I was like, so how much would it cost for me to get to the next level? And I keep going back and forth between where is the best place for my sport.fun capital to go. I have talked about this previously, like most of my money is on the football side, and I'm comfortable with the split that I have right now. Although I have found myself taking rewards from football, selling the ones I don't want, and throwing it over to NFL. And part of it is kind of a line that somebody said to me was like, your money just goes a lot farther on the NFL side. But that only means like because prices are lower, you get more shares. But all of this time right now, and I don't know how long this will last. I feel like it'll last at least through the World Cup as we head into next European football season and the next NFL season, that I just look at this as a time for accumulation. Now, I'm not putting more and more money into the platform. I put a pretty significant amount, for me at least, early on. And so I had founders packs in both sports and wanted those to be kind of the foundation for what I do moving forward. But when and the way that I treat rewards on the football side are I have a set number of guys that I want. And if I win guys that are not on that list, I usually sell them and either swap them into other shares of guys I have, or what I've been doing recently is putting them into NFL. But now it's like, should I be actually selling it and buying fun token instead, so that when I get these, when I have a good week TP wise, I get, a bigger bonus. Right now, level 4 is a 5% TP bonus. Level 5 is 10%, which like 10 is a lot higher than 5. And 25% back on fees. I don't think I'm going to realistically get to level 6, which is 20% TP bonus and 40% fees back. I think that's kind of your true whale area that I'm a long way from there. So I don't consider buying myself into level 6, but Um, I have to see basically after this tournament where I am, like how much it would cost to get to the next level, and see if it's really worth me buying more fun token for that. And as I look now, and it's at basically 5.5 cents per share per token. Yeah. Um, whereas like it was double that at one point. And when it was there, I try to be optimistic about it. Of when the number's really high, I'm like, wow, look how much I have, how much it's worth that I have. And when it's really low, I'm like, okay, is this the time that I should be buying more? And
Mm.
and I just don't know I don't think there's a right answer. I hope there's not a wrong answer, but I'm just not sure what the best course of action for me is.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and I suppose, I mean, I'm in a similar position to you. Obviously, I didn't buy the ICO for geolocation reasons, shall we say. Um, I'm definitely not in England. So yeah, so I was obviously locked out of the ICO, and I didn't have plans to buy the TGE. I said no, I'm not buying any tokens. I'll deal with my fund score that as I've earned it, and I'll just play the game. And I saw a tweet, and I was not thinking about SportDotFun at all. And I saw a tweet or a Discord message saying, "Oh, we're nearly at token launch," and people talking about, my messages were saying, "How do we buy it? How do we do it?" I was like, "Okay, I'll have a look, shall we? I'll have a look." And I sat there and pretty much bought. It went live on base like 5 minutes early, so I was like, "I'll just buy it now, and whatever happens, happens." Basically, so I bought a little bit higher than the ICO price point. So I was like, I'm happy with that. It's kind of, I've bought in at ICO. Um, and my tokens now are probably worth like 50% in terms of dollar value to what they were when I paid. However, I have no intention of selling them. I'm kind of sat here going, well, like you've just explained, I get extra TP boosts, I get fees back, and any US dollar that I've lost on that, I believe that I'll gain in the long run
Mm.
through playing the game, and it will kind of make itself net zero. Um, Again, I also don't look at the token price. It was only until you mentioned it before, and I was like, right, let me get it up on my phone and see where it's at. And I do see some people put in, charts with lines drawn, and because it's done this, it's going to go this or up flat or down, and you might as well be speaking a foreign language to me, because I look at that and go, sure, this candle in this wick and this, that, and somebody buying means, and I'm like, I don't understand it enough to know whether that's true or not. But I just kind of go, I've got my token, I'm earning tokens each week. I'm playing the game, and what will be will be. And that's my mindset to it. But I've thrown the question out there and said, like, is this potentially going to be a secondary game alongside buying players and doing that side of things? Will people buy more tokens right before, the kind of they're trading and selling out after the TP drops, and trying to get that fee rebates, and ensuring that at the start of the season, at the end of the season, their balance is level, but they trade in and out throughout that week. And is that why we're seeing peaks and dips and peaks and dips, and people going, right, I need to have a lot of fun score because I plan on selling all my NFL players and I want to get the fee rebates. And now I've sold all my players and I've got my fee rebates. I don't need the fun score anymore. So this is just such another level to the game that we're now seeing. And obviously the game in itself is still trying to establish itself. And now we've got this on top. And I think to 95% of users, they probably don't check that on a daily basis. They probably don't check the fun score. However, those same users probably do go on to sport.fun and check their player prices. So is it just a case that this is something that only few people will deal with or care about? Or is it kind of, we're in such early stages with it, and people at some point will go, actually, because the token is so cheap, I might as well go and buy and make myself level 6. How far away are we from that? So it's definitely interesting, and like I say, you see many people throwing calculations out and predictions, and I think it's brilliant to see. Unfortunately, goes straight over my head, but it's still really really fun to see.
I'm glad you brought up that chart thing because I think I saw the exact same tweet and it was like, it was something, just like you said, it's a chart, it has an arrow somewhere. And I was like, if we get to this level, there, it's clear that we're getting, and I'm like, I don't, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand how a token that has been around for less than 2 weeks has any sort of like historical data that we can use to justify the price going up or down. Like, I actually, it reminded me, and I think the token's on a different level than what we see with player shares within the game. But I think it was your conversation with Ace that was like, it big, or at least movements enough in player shares can happen when one person has decided to sell. Like if they're big
Yeah,
enough, one person sells and you look and you're like, oh my God, the market is going crazy. And you're like, it's actually only just one person. And so I don't know. I haven't done any of the
no,
the even slightest bit of research of like, was it just one person who sold a bunch of fun token and that's why it's down, or is it a bunch of people? And I'm sure there are very easy ways. And anyone watching this is like, yeah, just go. I'm like actually looking on OpenSea now, and people are buying $30 and $40 worth, and then there's like a $2,000 sale, and it's like, all right, well, there's someone big. Actually, it's the same wallet. Now that I'm looking, have sold like $4,000 worth of a fun token, and it's like, oh, it's all down. But then you look, and it's like buy, and it's smaller bits, smaller increments, and I feel like any prediction on where the token goes, like I just don't believe it. And so that's sort of the
yeah,
way that I think about it, which is why I don't look, because I don't understand what it is. But on the flip side, that hasn't stopped me from being like, can I play this trading game where I'm like, this is too low and I think it'll go up? I have no reason to think that 5.05398 is any better or worse than 0.0953, whatever it is. And it's just like, I was thinking of doing this on some player shares. Like when Pedri got hurt, he was down to like 0.035. Like he got really low. And I think he's at,
mm.
I think he
He's
definitely
climbing
came
back
back
up.
up. He's at oh wow, he's over 0.05 now. So like he dipped to 0.035 and I was like, that's just too low. And of course I didn't do anything about it and it shot right back up. But if you, I don't say, and obviously none of this is financial advice, but if if you've been tracking a price for a while, and obviously the football player shares and NFL we have a history that we can look to versus the fun token, which is just 2 weeks old. But if you're just like, if I liked Pedri at 0.07 when he was playing, and he's not playing now, and he's at 0.04, 0.05, and I think he'll go to 0.07 when he comes back, just buy some now and then sell it when he goes back up. And so I looked at the fun token and I was like, instead of, again, back to the whole, like, should I buy, if I was going to trade, am I better off trading the token, which I know nothing about, or the Pedri, which I know something about, but
Yeah,
ultimately I'm still at the mercy of, if one person decides they don't want to own Pedri anymore, then the price just
yeah.
tanks.
And that brings into question, obviously, the liquidity conversation that's been kind of, running in the background since the game started, really. And, the team are definitely kind of focused on that. And we're seeing efforts from the team in terms of marketing and pushing to bring in new users. So, but until that kind of happens, and that's not going to happen by tomorrow, that's going to happen months, months and months and months down the line. So it's those are the questions that at the moment you can't answer, and that is, you know, the one thought that I had when I first bought the token was the ICO people get 50% or whatever. No, it wasn't even 50%. The ICO people, that what they've paid, they get. I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head now.
It was like
But
20 or
they get a
25%, I thought.
yeah, it was a low percentage. So they get that, and then the rest is drip fed over 6 months. Well, if people bought the ICO with the plans to flip it and sell, well, that means that for the next 6 months, we're going to have a constant bleed. You know, that's the way my mind goes. They've bought it to flip it or whatever. And we saw the numbers by Rick's posted out on how many people from the ICO sold token in day
Mhm.
one. I think it was like 65% held. So it was 35% sold anything at all, which again to me means nothing. But the team and people seem to believe that that's good numbers, and the fact that that many people held is a good thing. Um, so we've clearly seen that the sell pressure is there at the moment, and it's until people like yourself or like me look at the game, look at the price, and go, I'm better off investing in the fun score and getting my level to level 5 or 6 and playing the game. And until those people start stepping across and doing that, we might not see the impact. And we've already seen that people in the NFL don't play football.fun and people in football.fun don't play the NFL.
Mhm.
So I'm sure there's a large people of players that play sport.fun that are not interested in, for the lack of a better word, playing the fun token.
Hmm.
Um, so it's how many people in that Venn diagram are actually willing to cross over and say, right, I'm selling my Pedri. I've bought Pedri when he's injured. He's come back. I've sold him. I've made a profit. I'm now going to put that into the fun token. Or do they go and put that into the next player?
Mhm.
So like I was saying, it's a game, and it's very difficult to kind of have that crossover, I guess. And there's nothing else that's going to improve that score other than people buying the token. Um, so it's definitely it's maybe one to keep an eye on. For me personally, I'll probably check it, like you said, when somebody says, "Oh my god, have you seen the fun token?" I'll go, "Nope." Send me a screenshot, and I'll check it out that way. But yeah, for me, I've got my fun token. I'm earning it each week. I put you know I put around, I think, £3,000 British pounds. I don't know what that is in dollars. Probably three and a half thousand into the fun token on TGE, and I've got my, I think, 45,000 tokens. Somebody said, "Oh, you should get it up to 50,000 for the next level or something." But I'll sit and wait for the moment, and we'll rock with it.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing about trading the token is the you obviously lose the benefits of the token when you sell it. Like you
Yeah.
and if you are trading it, you're not trading it on sport.fun, like you're doing it somewhere else. And so unless you bring it, you basically transfer it over to sport.fun, you're not really getting the benefits of owning the token. Like you're just literally just trading it. You could be trading any token at that point. Like it doesn't seem like there's enough of a benefit to trading the fun token versus any other token because I know so little about the fun token, could learn anything about a new token in a day and be caught up to speed. But it's the benefits of owning the token are so high in the game that
Mm.
you're not really like there's really not that much of a draw to trading the token as opposed to just buying the token and holding it forever. And
Yeah.
the only thing I understand about the token itself is it feels like the bigger the sport.fun is as a platform, the better the token owning the token will be. And so if we're all basically just now or what we want is sport.fun itself, football.fun, American football to be as successful as possible. And that should lead to more benefit to the token. But again, we want to hold the token anyway.
Yeah, and we definitely saw that happening when the token was getting spoken about and getting launched, and people saying, "Oh, right, I'm investing in sport.fun." And, I mean, if you look over the last 30 days on Tenero or Fukin No One's June reports or anything like that, when you look at the new wallets that are joining in over the last 30 days, we've had 200 new accounts and just shy of 5,000 people returning to trade. So, we are seeing those numbers kind of slowly joining the game. But it's at what kind of interest are people joining, and are they interested in the growth of the game itself? I've referred people from, you know, kind of different games and different backgrounds. Some like so rare. And I know one of the people that I referred came in, bought like 10 players, and about a week or two later, I said, "Oh, how are you getting on with it?" And they said, "Oh, I've not logged back on since I've bought those players." And actually, that's another thing that I kind of said at first. I laughed. I thought, Jesus Christ. But that's actually the beautiful thing about Sport.Fun is you can buy players, you can buy contracts up to 8 games, and 8 games might cover 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm.
You don't have to log on for 6 to 8 weeks, and you can earn TP and earn rewards and come back on and then either renew contracts or sell. It doesn't require daily playing. And I think when we start getting even passive players like that, the liquidity fixes, and then people see, oh my God, the market cap's rising and new users are joining. And then people outside the game go, right, now I'm going to invest in Sport.Fun as a company. Now I'm going to buy the token. And, probably, we'll move on and touch about this briefly. We've got the Super Bowl happening in what, 10 days, I think, from time of recording, off the top of my head. We've got the Super Bowl happening. That's going to probably see a dip in the NFL game, and some people might stay, might leave, might do off season. We don't know. Might come over to football.fun. So that's going to happen. And then a couple months down the line for NFL, we're going to start getting the draft happening and the new players added into the game and the scouting system, and that might create new users. At the same time, we're then going to have the World Cup. That's going to create new users. And then shortly after that, potentially, or maybe even before, we're going to have the NBA starting in October. So, when do we see that third iteration of the game coming into the platform? And, I can't imagine that will happen a week before the season start. Maybe that's done in August for us, an October start. So it's difficult because you're kind of holding your breath. For me anyway, as a user, I'm holding my breath, kind of looking down the line saying, there might not be that much happens for the next 3 to 5 months. However, after that, there's so much. And if the team capitalize on that period between kind of June to October, then who knows, where that token ends up, I guess. And for me personally, I can't see it being lower than it is today. So in which case, maybe I should be going and getting the credit card out and and topping up. Who knows?
For the people that you have brought onto the platform, do they tend to be more active? Like you said, you had that one that bought 10 players and then haven't looked at it again. Like, I'm curious how some people, just come onto the platform. Because I was talking to somebody yesterday, and obviously we all want new users. And I feel like there's a difference between a new user that stays and a new user that is like, okay, this isn't for me. And I feel like maybe it's just because of the way that I got involved that as soon as I started playing, I was like, I get this and I really like it. And I think it's a game that a lot of people would like if they just tried it. But do you find that the people that you've brought in are the more passive people about it? Because mine is heavily favored to people who are still very active. But a very good friend of mine didn't get in on the football side, which is funny because he's more of a football fan, but he got in on NFL, got a bunch of founders packs, or maybe he bought in early, something like that. And he's actually been very passive about NFL. And he messaged me the other day and he was like, oh, stop me if you've had this issue. He's like, I keep forgetting to bring guys over from my dev squad every day. And he's like, and I have like 20 guys in my dev squad, but he was winning like 20, 30,000 TP in NFL. So he was like, he had all these he was opening legendary packs, but like too many to promote everyone. Like in football, I tend to win, hopefully it stays, but like between enough for like usually two legendary packs, and maybe sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. But like ultimately that's only 8 players. So I can get all of them in my squad. I remember to promote guys, but he was like, I just don't remember to do it. And like he's winning a decent amount, but it's not, the NFL game for him is just not active enough. And actually, and we can talk about this later, he messaged me the other day and he was like, can I use NFL TP for football? And I was like, you can't, but that would open up there's got to be some sort of, I'm sure there are very good reasons why you can't do that. But he was just kind of like, oh, that's too bad. And I was like, you can sell NFL shares, your gold balance works for both. So like you could do that way.
Yeah.
And his response was kind of like, but I want to open packs. And I was like, yeah, packs are fun, but now you buy shares, win pack, win TP for packs. But anyway, the real question is like the people that you brought on, do they tend to be more active, or is it just like, hey, buy shares and you can just milk this forever?
So the first few guys that I kind of referred, we've got Snake, Dane, and Dio, kind of all people that I met through MFL, and we've got a little, is it called a group in Discord? Just the four of us,
Yeah.
in like a chat, in a group chat, um, and pretty much all four of us every day will be saying about player prices or trades or, have you seen this happen? Very, very active. Shout out the Snake for all the fee rebates that I got over the first few months.
I bet.
Because me and him went pretty hard on it, and Dio did as well. And it's quite interesting because for a while there was kind of me and Snake at the top in terms of money that we added in, but that was because of the early boom and the money that we kind of had in the game. So we were up there. Dio was, I say mid-range, but he was still, healthy five figures. And then Dane kind of for a while, I think he entered in with $300, pretty much got sucked out by the market cap coming down, has kind of added back in, and I'm not sure what he's kind of at now, but again, very active, very, trades very heavy. There's also been some other kind of guys from MFL and from the Baller DAO, like Jocka that I added in, and I think Jocka was at first, I think he just added like $50 and was just kind of, I think it was after like the first month of playing that he was like, oh my God, I can finally open a pack, because he's been playing with such little shares. So I've kind of referred people from the kind of the top end, shall we call it, all the way down to the lower end. And I think the vast majority have been very, very active in playing pretty much, multiple times a week at least, if not every day. And it was that first time, and I won't say their name because again, I don't know if they want ties to the SportStotFun or what they plan to do with the game. But that was my first time having somebody hit me up, ask me questions, say, can you explain how the game works? And it took them like 2 or 3 days to kind of get signed up. They were just doing it slowly. Whether there was other things going on in life, I don't know. They bought a few players. One of the ones was Voltamar, and we kind of had the conversation and said they're a very good fantasy football scorer, but might not translate over into sport.fun. Sent them over the wiki and kind of said, look at how the fantasy points in sport.fun score. And kind of about a week and a half later, like I say, I messaged and they were like, "Oh no, I've not done anything. I've not sold. I've not bought. I've not done anything." So that was my first time having that. But also, I have to say that I've not pushed. So I've, when Sport.Fun first launched, and so the pro version first launched under Football.Fun, probably mid to late August, I was putting my referral link into a few different Discords and stuff and had mixed reviews. And some people were, stood outside with pitchforks saying, we're not falling for this again. And other people were like, oh, tell me about it. And we'd have conversations. Then they might join, they might say, sounds really good, not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. And kind of since then, I've refrained from pushing any referral stuff. I do it on my social media and I'll talk about sport.fun, my journey, but I certainly don't push the game. So it might be kind of a trend that at the very beginning, when it was so chaotic, people were like, oh my God, if I don't come back on in an hour's time, I might have missed this huge pump and dump that's happened on player. We were seeing players prices, a new Wales come in and just dropped $5,000 on this one player, and now 100 people have sold out because I wasn't online. I missed that, and I've not gained, I've not lost. I'm back where I started, but it's that psychological I could have had. And I think with the market cap being as stable as it is now, we're nearly 6 months on from that. I think it's starting to allow people to come in and be passive. And I can relate to your friend not promoting. It was a big thing for me. I'd be on the game every single day, and I would forget to promote from the development center.
Mm-hmm.
I'd open the packs, I'd promote 3, and that would be it. And I'd sit there, and then, come next week, I'd be like, shit, I've got 30 players in my development squad. What do I do? Who do I need to get out? So yeah, it's for me. I think I've found that the people I've referred are very kind of engagement heavy, but the people that I've mainly referred are people that I speak to each day, and they're similar to me in terms of that activity. But I think we see, again, when you look at Tenero, and you look at the kind of returning wallets over the past day and the past week, there's been 1,000 returning trades over the past 7 days. So there's kind of indication for me, I believe, that a lot of people are starting to become a little bit more passive with it and not feeling that they need to trade in and out. Um, but who knows?
Do you think, like, how much of it is it a sell on people where you're like, you can buy these shares and you don't have to do anything and you can just win?
I th-
Like, I feel like
I think that will be a big sale soon. I think with the new pack. So the guy, Jock, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, like I say, he was playing with such a small budget that it took him so long to open a pack. And from what I can understand with the new pack structure, you can do it as big or small as pack you want. However
Mhm.
much TP you've got, you can do minimum, you can do maximum. You never have to worry about promoting from your development squad. You can just relax. So in theory, you could buy players, leave for a month, come back, have 10 TP, have 100,000 TP, and open one pack, and all those players are immediately available for sale or swap. And I think that is brilliant because you don't have to come back every 24 hours to do your 3 development players. You don't have to come and trade at that 4 o'clock deadline, where TP gets locked and players get sold. You don't have to worry about that. You can just set and forget. And not to put any bad words towards So Rare, one thing that I found when I played So Rare was I have to remember to do this. And I kept, it would get to me on a Friday morning or a Friday afternoon or whatever, and I'd go, right, I need to set my teams for the weekend. Deadline's passed. Shit. And I've got these players that I can't do anything with now. That's
Mhm.
not So Rare's fault. That's me as a user. That's my fault. Um, and because of that, I was like, this just doesn't work because I'm too lazy and procrastinate and do things last minute. And So Rare requires me to be on top of things and on the ball. And yes, even So Rare, you can set lineups, a month out. But again, if you don't meet the deadline, it's players locked. I had one a month ago because I'm running a full Liverpool stack. Ekatike got injured. I knew about the injury, but I'd already set the team 2 weeks out. And I went to change it and I was like, it's too late. I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So I think the passiveness will start to be seen in Sport.Fun soon. Soon.
So I don't disagree. I guess the way that I was thinking of it was trying to convince somebody to play a game and you're like, it's really fun. All you have to do is buy these shares and then you don't have to do anything after that. Like, that doesn't sound very fun. And I feel like the passiveness, the ability to play passively is a huge positive, but is also kind of like a hard selling point of what's fun about buying shares today and just not thinking about them ever again. And not to say that there aren't aspects of the game, like, you can do a lot more than just like buy shares and whatever. If you want to trade, you can do that. And I think understanding the reason why owning more shares of lesser owned players is more, can be more beneficial. Like, there are a lot of strategies in this game that allow you to go very deep if you want to. But
Mm.
other than, like, I think this could be free money if
Okay,
all you have to do is buy.
let
Like, what's the
let me ask you a question. If somebody was to say to you, "What is the number one thing to do in the game?" What would you reply with?
like that I do?
So, right, you say, "Oh, Sport.Fun's really funny." You say, "Okay, well, what do I do? What's the number one thing that I do?" What would you be your thought on that?
I buy I buy shares of like my favorite players, and
So so
when
you
they do
you
well in
you
fantasy, I win.
so in theory you trade players is the thing to do. So uh, a sport.fun, you buy and sell, trade, you collect. So rare, you set lineups, you collect cards. Like that's kind of, you set lineups, you collect cards. For me, you can be passive or you can be aggressive when you trade.
Mm.
Trading is the platform, in my opinion. You can trade every hour, you can trade every day, you can trade every month. Um, you mentioned earlier Pedri. Pedri got injured. Well, people have bought Pedri, but he's not going to do anything for another 30 days. So why buy him? Because he's not going to perform. Well,
Hmm.
you're trading for long term. So you can come on, you can buy Pedri shares, you can wave goodbye to the platform, come back when he's back from injury, sell his shares, have a look at, right, who's injured now. And you could cycle that and be very passive. Or you could say, right, um, I think I was looking at it the other day. I don't know. Right, we've got, shall we say, there's got to be a team off the top of it. Barcelona. Barcelona have got Copenhagen in the Champions League later today. Elche, Mallorca, Girona, Levante, Villarreal, Bilbao. Quite easy fixtures potentially. There's no real speed bumps in there, so maybe I'm going to go buy a Rafinha or a Yamal, and I'm going to come back after all those games are done. I'm going to buy into him. I'm going to trade. I'm going to come back and see how much TP he's won over that period, and then sell him before the next heavy game. So that to me is still playing the game in the way the game is meant by trading, but it's done in a very passive way. Um, Alternatively, you could turn around and say, right, what I'm going to do is look at the Champions League games tonight. They all kick off at 8 p.m. UTC, for instance. I'm going to be scrolling Twitter. I'm going to try and get any early leaks on the lineups. And Bayern Munich lineups come out and Harry Kane isn't starting. So Harry Kane's going to get a dump. And I'm going to be the first one to buy on that little dip so that I can then have him for the next game. And that's a way you can trade as well. You can be very aggressive and you can do daily trades or Marmouche. When Man City played Wolves, a lot of people were buying into Marmouche. I don't know if you saw the chart was going and going and going and going. And the lineups came out and he went
Hmm.
and shot off. So people were very active in their trading. Now, that doesn't, there's no right or wrong way to play. Both people are playing the game in their way. And that's why I think that it will allow very passive games. And I mean, don't forget, right, do you want to play the NFL? Brilliant. Well, you can join whenever you want. You can start buying shares of players for next season. You're going to earn rewards. You can open packs, come on every week, see how much you've got that week or every month, or wait 6 months and have your TP open packs. And then when the season starts, you've got all these players. So again, a very passive way to play. And that's what excites me because I think when when the beta came out and me and you have spoken about this, the free to play version was too chaotic. You
Hmm.
had to be, it was minute by minute, you had to be there, minute by minute. And then the pro version came out and it kind of went 5 minute by 5 minute, then it went hour by hour, then day by day. And we're now getting to a period where, you know, Pedri's seeing a pump. Pedri is like a week into a month-long injury and his price is going up.
Hmm.
That would never have happened before. You know, so I don't worry about trying to sell the game in a passive way. I think it's actually a real benefit of saying, well, if you're a Real Madrid, a Man City, a Arsenal, a Bayern, a Bayer Leverkusen fan, you can buy your favorite players and be very passive and just kind of collect and hoard. So yeah, there's lots of avenue I think for the team to explore.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great. I think maybe I just um, maybe I don't give enough credit to the trading aspect, and because I think of it as like I'm buying my shares to win, but like I'm buying the shares as a trade in itself. So I guess maybe it's just the term trade that I just view differently. But if that's the
Mm.
way that everybody looks at it, then that's what it is. I was also just looking at the Marmouche chart. That is, he basically is back to where where he was before the game. um, but yeah,
Understandable.
I think that's the right way to think of it. Um, you can be super active, but you're not overly penalized by being inactive for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, that was a worry. So when I went away for Christmas and New Year, I was worried that because I wasn't active, I was going to miss out. And because of that, I reduced my portfolio size, and I was a little bit kind of skeptical because at that time, players were going on break, they were going on AFCON, they were, it was a bit of a worry to think, right, what am I going to come back to in January?
Hmm.
And again, that's liquidity problems and unknowns as well. This is the first cycle that we've gone through where players have gone for AFCON. This is the first winter break we've gone through. We don't know how the market's going to react. Like you explained on the fund score, it's been out for weeks. It doesn't have history. So we can't say that yes, it's guaranteed to kind of come back. I think one thing when we talk about the market and the predictions and the liquidity that we've seen over the past, I'm going to say week, it might be longer, it might be shorter. They obviously announced that the buyback had been paused, and that's now kind of the tap's been turned on, shall we say. And I've certainly seen people kind of explaining that they can see the difference in the buybacks and that it's progressing again. And what do you think about that? Is it, it's obviously nice to have and nice to see. But has that been something that you've noticed in your playing?
So I was on Tenero before, um, and I saw what I thought was I was looking at Olise, and I saw what I thought was the buyback. Um, Although now that I'm looking at it, maybe it's is it this one?
Let me have a look.
I'm trying to
Who are you
see
looking
if
at, Aliso?
might be it's got to be a different wallet because this one says it owns $73 million worth, so it's got to be that. But the um, like the buyback for Olise was like over $1,000, and I was like, oh, that's like pretty significant, because we're used to seeing like $1 buys of these players kind of spread out to everybody. Um, because I don't monitor player prices that much, like I don't want to say it doesn't make a difference to me that they're now just rewarding the top scoring players as opposed to all the players, but from a fantasy perspective, which a lot of like my background is, so I look at it from that way. It does just kind of like sensically make sense to me that you would buy back more of the players that are performing well. Like the point of
Yeah,
the game is to predict which players are going to perform the best, and getting an added benefit of the buybacks in addition to, if you own the shares, the TP that you get from them placing in the top 5, but being able to know that there's some sort of market security if they score really well. It's just a nice comfort, I guess.
no, definitely. I mean, as well, I'm just having a look now at Tenero and at the buyback wallet, and literally in the last 1 minute ago from now, the volume they've just done on a buyback for Emilio Martinez, the goalkeeper, is just shy of $7. Another, same time, Nico Schlotterbeck, $9.87. So we're seeing, actual significant increases, and for a long time it was just $1 buys.
Right.
When the bot first came out, it was just $1, $1, $1, $1. Um, so now there's actually, we're seeing some kind of significant kind of increases, and that's obviously shone in the market cap. Over the past day, the market cap's taken a significant jump. And over the past week, we were kind of mid-range 18 million, and we're now kind of low level 19 million. So again, a significant kind of 5 to 10% increase on the market cap, which you then see across the board. It's definitely a better time, I think, for users within FDF. There was a lot of worry, shall we call it, when the token launched. We were kind of sitting pretty healthy at a 25 million market cap for a long period of time. that then took a drop when the token launch came, and we saw sell-offs. I always forget how to pronounce it, Mr. Kvak or Kvark.
Hmm.
Um, I think he sold he sold like 2 to 5% of his ownership in certain players, but that just decimated the price on some players, because that 2 to 5% was like 100,000 shares
Sure.
of a top range player. Um, so that was a little bit of a worrying time, but again, it's kind of, for me, it doesn't bother me, because if you were to sell 5% shares of, so 5% ownership of a player, I wouldn't be knocking down your door saying, Laird, what are you doing? Um, but for somebody who's, the biggest, or I think is the biggest wallet in the game, when they do something like that, people stop and look and think, right, what's the damage? So he would have generated a lot of fees in that. I'm sure he's got a lot of fund score and would get a fairly healthy rebate on those fees anyway. But also he's propped up the buyback pool, and we're going to start seeing that drip fed back into the market. So I don't know. I think a month ago I was in a very happy position. I know three weeks ago now, where me and you had the kind of the conversation off air, I was kind of running you through my my port and my balance. I've taken like a 20% hit on that over that 3 week period, because of these drops and things like that. And also me being stupid and making some bad decisions, and, chasing certain things within the NFL and the playoffs. And, I went big into like J.K. Dobbins, who was backed by R.J. Harvey against the Patriots, because I just had a feeling that the Patriots were gonna fluff it, and they nearly did.
Hmm.
Um, and I chased some other stuff. I chased kind of Dalton Kincaid for the Bills, which obviously that didn't go too well for them. So I have seen some losses that are down to me. But yeah, the market also kind of beat my ass a little bit. So we're on the up and the up, and the buyback. Who doesn't love a buyback?
Yeah, the what you were saying earlier about when one whale decides to sell, it makes everybody look, because their shares aren't worth as much. But
Yeah.
I do think it's really important, because we don't ever really know. Well, not never, but we don't always know why people sell. But if somebody gets hurt, price tanks because everybody wants to get out. We understand that. But there could be situations where somebody's selling because they want to just go into other players and they're not necessarily using the swap. And maybe, if you see one $10,000, $100,000 or 100,000 share sell, you're just like, oh shit, like what's going on here? And if that goes into 25,000 share buys, like we don't necessarily see that, because each one of those doesn't move the market as much as that one huge drop. And so that's why I don't necessarily trust anyone who looks at a chart and is like, well, because we're at this level here, we all know that once we get to this level, that'll be the floor. And then you see the arrow go up. And like, it just doesn't exist long enough. And looking at, you know, thinking that there is some sort of historical data from something other than either the fund token or any of these player shares, and maybe it's just my own ignorance about it, but I just don't see how that one
Mm,
lead, can help you with the other than just saying, I've seen this before and I'll trade on that. But it's not, I don't know. It's a weird thing with me with that one, but you do, I feel like now, and this isn't something that I would ever tell someone as that I was like selling the game on, but if you're confident in your picks, knowing that the buyback is going to be like skewed towards those same picks gives you some pretty
mm,
good security, at least price wise, for a while, that there's going to be money going to this player. Other people may sell it, but there is going to be money being put into the players that you chose, which, I'm not to say that's going to stop the price from going below wherever you bought, but
yeah.
again, it's just an advantage of getting the players right.
I mean, as well, shout out to David Starsky, PLIR 21 on X on Twitter. He did a post the other day that I saw, and kind of saying, you know, the people that have kind of been repeat winners and kind of, who could help on the buyback. You've got the Mbappes, the Kanes, the Haalands, Elise, Vitinha, Pedri's in there, Van Dijk, Cucurella, Gabriel, Vicario, Magnon, Simon. So there's also people in the game that are very, as we spoke to Bacon last week, very data driven and probably will be the ones that are drilling in to see those big trades and those big swaps and where one person has sold 50,000 shares and then 10 people have gone and bought back in to balance it out. On the surface, it can look like that player's had no movement at all, but underneath they might have generated a lot of fees, and that buyback will be piling into them. So that's kind of exciting. I just want to ask as well. I mean, whilst we're on kind of the predictions aren't real and the market can do anything, what's your kind of thought on the football.fun market at the moment? The front runners, we've got Yamal, Mbappe, and Elise, and they're kind of they're head and shoulders above the next guys in the Kane, Haaland, there, and then there's a big step down to Vitinha and another big step down to the Rafinha. Do you think that those are fair prices? Do you think that people are owning a Yamal and Mbappe for the sentiment of owning the quote unquote best players in the game, or what kind of your thoughts when looking at those guys?
I think there's just a natural inclination to at least have some shares of the safest guys, and they feel like the safest because they score the most. And so one of those every week, at least you'll get some TP from those guys. Theoretically, like, I'm curious how many weeks have happened where Yamal and Mbappe both play and neither finish top five. Like, I can't imagine it's many weeks. And so they just feel safe. And Olise has a little bit of that as well because he scores goals and so and gets assists, and not many midfielders in the game do that. So he gets 1, 2, like, you're set. Whereas like Vitinha is really good, but doesn't always get some sort of, goal or assist. And so he may not always be in that top 5, but so I think it makes sense where they are. Like Pedri was in that Haaland Kane range. Like, he was above Vitinha before he got hurt. But as we know, like, if you're putting $100 into these players, you're going to win a lot more if you put $100 into Yildiz or Vinicius Jr. than you are the other guys, just because they're cheaper. You have more shares. There are probably fewer outstanding or active shares of those players. So it's just, how you want to play the game. But like, looking at my own portfolio, like, my top 2 holdings are Mbappe and Yamal, and Olise's third.
Is that okay? So is that on dollar value on the shares that you've got? Is that like a significant biggest in your portfolio, or is it kind of close?
Mbappe and Yamal are pretty close. Olise, it's like Mbappe, Yamal, Olise, and Pedri. And so Pedri was my highest holding for a while. And a huge part of that is because when his shares hit the market, I got in. I did like the $300 buy at 0.0125 or what. Like, I got a really good price on Pedri and have just held them ever since. And so I kind of have this thing now where I like having round number shares. It's incredibly stupid, and I used to make fun of people about it. And then as soon as I got one at a round number, I was like, okay, that looks nicer. I haven't totally got it, but I'm in like the 14,000 range for Mbappe, 12,000 for Yamal, 13 for Olise, and then it's like 25,000 for Pedri. Now, granted, his shares are worth less, but like, I got 20,000 shares on that first day of trading. And there are a couple random ones I also got, like Nuno Mendes and Schlotterbeck. I have over 20,000 from that first day. When they, I can't even remember what we called them when those players started trading out of the founders packs, basically. This is effectively like a player ICO. Like, but so like, I have high share counts of random guys like that are significantly less portfolio wise, but like, or value wise, but share wise, they're up there. 24,000 shares of Jordan Pickford, but it's worth like a tenth of Mbappe.
And that, I mean, you can throw this now right back to that conversation about can you play this game passively, and you've just explained that absolutely you can. You know, you've bought those Pedri shares, you know, yonder years ago almost, it seems like, in the cycle of this game. And you've just sat on them, you're slowly chipping in. I'm sure when you open packs and you get Pedri shares, they go into the stockpile as well. And you know, you've obviously got those guys for that aspect. And, you know, when you look at a Yamal and Mbappe and Elise, you're not buying those guys thinking they're going to have a 20% price increase. You're buying those because I think, you know, 9 times out of 10, one of them will get me TP and slowly burn it that way. I'm kind of on the, you know, I mean, I am into Elise. I didn't even know I've got Haaland, Kimmich, Pedri. I'm kind of in that skip the top, and I'm almost in the second tier of guys that might have a price jump, might kind of, you know, they've got an outside shot of TP, and when they do, if they get a top three, it might be kind of a bigger boost. Yes, they're not going to get it as often, but if they get it one every 3 times that somebody else, you know, Yamal does, I can kind of get the same TP. So I find that quite interesting because, again, I'm in the aspect of trading these guys in and out probably round when their contracts end now. I kind of, you know, I'm 4 to 6 weeks out when I buy a player. I'm not looking at the next game week. I'm kind of thinking I might buy them into a difficult fixture, and then, you know, the 2-3 weeks afterwards is where I start seeing the
Mhm.
benefits or the rewards. So it's interesting to hear these kind of different thoughts and different play styles, and, you know, for you having all of the top guys. And do you hold shares in the bottom players? I mean, if I go onto the transfer and flip sort by price to the bottom bit, you know, I mean, Trafford, Rodon, probably, you know, you're probably looking a little bit into the Hoylands and Romagnoli and Tillmans. Do you own any of those guys, or are they sold as soon as packed?
The Usually I sell those guys. The one guy that I got in on early that I thought I was being really smart on was Matthias Sula from Roma,
Yep,
and he was playing really
not worked.
well. What's that?
That's not worked, has it?
So so it did not. It did not. I will say this though. So I own just over 20,000 shares of Sula, and when I bought him, I think Paulo Dybala was out, and so he was taking all the set pieces. He might have even been on penalties, and I think I was like 1 or 2 games too late. So I bought a ton of shares of his, and I was like, this guy's going to be great. Dybala came back and just murdered Sula's fantasy scores. But he did have like a top. Did he finish second? Oh, so
I'm
this is
not
like
sure.
really tilting. So on the
Yeah,
January
first.
13th one, it says first, but he finished second. He had the same score as I think it was Olise.
Oh,
Um,
brutal.
Absolutely brutal because the whole week. Now I actually have to go back. Let me see. 13th wasn't even a tournament. Nabry. Sorry, I'm
Hmm,
like,
that's okay.
yeah, no, I can't. You can't go back far enough, which is probably just helpful because I would just tilt even more. But he was first like the whole game, the whole tournament, and then all of a sudden he like ticked down, and I just watched my TP just like, and it, a second place finish. Nobody owned him. Like it was still very good, but I was just like, like I
But it
thought I
wasn't
nailed it.
first.
And yeah, but the problem, probably back to what you were saying about the passiveness of it. Um, I bought those shares like 2 months ago, and it wasn't
Mm,
until 2 weeks ago that it finally worked. But and so I'm willing to just hold those, but I really don't have like that many guys. Like I have Angelo Stiller that I got in like the second round of founders packs. I think he was in. Didn't sell. I own a bunch of Jonathan David for the same like David. I actually just was too slow on to sell, and
yeah.
he went under the like the original price, and I was just like, all right, I'll just hold on to it at this point. And then he ended up getting a first place a couple weeks ago, and it was just like I like when those guys pop up. You're just like, oh, I do have shares of those. Like I don't think it's worth owning shares of everybody, but I've kind of like picked and choose a few random ones that I think will be fine. And so when they get there, it's like, okay, I have my Elise TP, I have my uh Mbappe TP, And then, oh, here's Arda Güler. Great. I have shares of him too.
Nice. Yeah, I think it'll be very, very interesting when we start seeing these pick nine players. You might get an upgrade on the pack you can buy with any value of TP, because my thought is that what does that do to these bottom half players? You know, if you have the you know dollar value tied to the same player, do you want $100 of Rodon, or do you want $100 of Yamal? Now, I mean, I don't even know. Let me just out of curiosity. Let me have a look at Rodon and Yamal's price if my computer will work. Um, you'd get 15,000 shares of Rodon for $100, or for Yamal, you'd be getting 633. So do you want 15,000 shares of Rodon, or do you want 600 of Yamal? And that's now where I'm kind of excited to see with the packs on how it will work. And I'm not saying that it will be tied to dollar value, or, obviously I don't know how it will work. I don't think we've seen the details yet. We just know there'll be 9 players, pick 3, and it will be of any kind of TP value. But those are the questions that I start thinking, what happens to these bottom half players if nobody's wanting them?
Mm-hmm.
If the kind of the circulation of the supply in these players is so small because people aren't packing them.
Yeah.
There might be like people like, I mean, if I go into my squad and scroll down, I've got shares in Joe Bellingham. I've got 1,700 shares of Joe Bellingham. That's purely because I've obviously packed him, promoted him, and just not done anything. So I'm adding to the circulation and the supply, though. So people that do seriously hold Joe Bellingham, if he was to score, I'm taking away a bit of their percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if people are stopping buying him, stopping promoting him into packs, picking Joe Bellingham, the circulation supply dips down. The people that do hold them, wow. So we're opening ourselves to a different level of play to people like yourself, those 25,000 Sewell shares, or the however many you have of Jonathan David. Should they hit a top 5, you could be looking at a big payday. So exciting things to come for sure.
I was just looking at AJ's data here, and I went back to the tournament with Sula because I can't give this up. So I misremember, it was Luis Diaz who passed him. Or I don't. It's not even past him. They ended up, what on the site looks like it's the exact same score. Diaz had like an Opta adjustment, like a day after his game. So like I actually thought Sula had it, and then Diaz went up. I'm looking at how different it was. Luis Diaz for that tournament had 187 TP per $100 in that tournament. 187 if he finished first, which he did. Sula, if he finished first, was 1,090 TP per 100, like 8-9 times more. And so when that one hit, I was just like, let's go. And then he got bumped to second. So second place paid $654 per 100. So like if you had $100, you're still winning with Sula second as opposed to Diaz. But I was just, in fact, this is what's crazy. If Sula finished fourth, he would have won more TP per 100 than Diaz at first.
Wow.
Actually, so Harry Kane finished third. Kane was 109 TP per $100, which is the same as if Sula had finished fifth.
Crazy. And that's what I mean. It's so, when people go, right, I want a Yamal, I want a Mbappe, you're needing consistent top 5 finishes, potentially even consistent top 3. Whereas, yourself, you need a top 5 once every, 3-4 months.
Yeah.
And I think one player that I see that kind of, I think, picked up that trajectory of realization was an Amad Diallo. And without the data in front of me, I'm not too sure. But I remember Diallo. This is just off my memory, so it might be quite wrong. But I remember Amad Diallo released from the phase 3, I think, founder packs, the back end of it, his price dropped significantly, like way under. And then I think he went and got close to a top 5 TP finish. And then he was getting goals and assists for Man United, and kind of people going, hang on a minute, what's happening here? And obviously he's then left for AFCON and come back. But Diallo's a sleeper pick now that I hear many people talk about. Oh, I've got shares in Diallo because he plays kind of this right wing back, right mid style position for United. Obviously that might change under new management. But there's those players for sure that, are interested in. And even a Matthias Sul, if Paulo Dybala got suspended or got injured, Sul might not hit top 5 TP, but I'm guarantee people will be looking at him, buying him, and the price will increase as people are getting on board with it. So, there's many ways to win. So who knows? Let's. I was going to say, we've been going over an hour. I don't even realize. I feel like we've spoken about a lot of nothing, but we've absolutely flown by. No, it's been a brilliant episode. I just want to quickly touch on. I know we mentioned briefly that obviously we've got the Super Bowl in the 8th of February. Is it? If I'm not correct, sorry, if I'm not mistaken, is that correct? Super Bowl
sounds about right.
Yeah, the 8th of Feb. It's because so for me it's 11:30 at
Right.
night, so close to a cut-off onto the 9th. So we're about 10 days away from that, and we've obviously seen spikes and drops in players as they get eliminated from the playoffs. Are you looking at that date in a sport.fun aspect? Are you kind of backing Patriots? Are you backing Seahawks? Are you not bothered at all? Where are you standing?
I haven't bought anyone specifically for the Super Bowl. And I was almost like too nervous. I was going back and forth basically between Jackson Smith and Jigba and Puka Nacua, like who I wanted to buy for the Super Bowl before their game. And I was just like, I don't want to be wrong. And so I just stayed on the sideline for it. I was in a conversation yesterday about NFL and basically, do you think it's too late for us to see like an NFL dump off? Like, I don't think we're going to see people selling after the Super Bowl because it doesn't make any sense. Like if you not even the Super Bowl participants, but for the non-Super Bowl players, like there's really no reason to sell after the Super Bowl as opposed to previously. And so I'm just like curious if you think that we're going to see much movement in the NFL market down after the Super Bowl.
I mean, it's quite strange. So we obviously saw quite a big spike into non-playoff players a few weeks back, if you remember. People were doing their calculations for TP per player or whatever for the off season. Obviously, we had Bacon on last week. I've spoken in the past to Ace and to Crypto Dan, who have both kind of given their thoughts on the NFL. For me personally, I was surprised that there was such a big buy-in though many weeks ago because, Trey McBride was like top 3 player in terms of price, and he finished all his games and he wasn't going to earn anything else for weeks. And obviously they've then seen big sell-offs after the TGE. For whatever reason, people have kind of bought and sold. I believe, maybe I'm wrong, that we'll see trickles of sales between now and the Super Bowl. And I believe that in the hour to half an hour before, we're going to see a big swing. And I don't know which way. I'll be totally honest with you. There could either be people dumping right before the off season, or there could be people coming in with a lot of money before the off season. And I think anybody who tells you that they know which way it will swing is wrong. Because my worry is, and we've seen it happen time and time again, if somebody is to come in with, right, the hypothetical situation, you own Trey McBride. Trey McBride is set to get X amount of TP for you over the offseason because the price that he's the US dollar price. If 100 people come in and buy Trey McBride an hour before the Super Bowl and his price doubles or triples, your TP that you're going to get is going to half or more. Do you hold or do you sell? And that's why I think there's going to be either a big swing in either direction, because this is just for me off past experience on other games. I think I remember you said that you weren't in MFL at this period. So the MFL did a football version of when the Euros were about. So you could buy shares in the Euro teams and how well they performed on the game. You got like MFL, you got tokens back. So people were doing these calculations, being like, right, if you buy shares into this nation, they only need to get this far because they're so cheap. But if you buy shares in, I think it was like a Germany and an England with the best squads, they have to win the whole thing. And people were stockpiling on these to the point it was like, well, even if they win, they're not going to get you anything. You know, like it's such a bad thing. But at that point, you couldn't sell your shares once you bought them. You were locked in. So people were there like, stop buying this nation. You're ruining my, you know. Whereas in here, we've got the freedom to sell. And if that kind of dial swings too far to the wrong way, people are just going to sell. So I'm excited. I'm nervous for this period. And I think it's, you know, it's one we could talk about for another hour, that I believe most people have sold out for where they want to be. I don't believe that everybody's bought into the spots they want to be in.
Okay.
And I think that the money coming in last minute could make some sell-offs. And when you said, do you think people will sell after the Super Bowl? Once the Super Bowl starts, and I don't know what time this is, because in football, it's when a player enters the field. In the NFL, it's when the game starts. So I assume it's when that ball is kicked on the kickoff. Any shares purchased are not eligible for off-season TP. They'll go into the secondary pool. So the buys are locked. The sells are not locked.
Yeah.
So it could be that the graph goes up and up and up. Super Bowl kicks off and there's a sell-off. That's my prediction there. And that's why I don't know how far we'll swing, because whether it kind of goes up and comes back down to where it is now, whether it goes up a little bit and comes down heavy, I don't know. Whether it goes up so far that the sell-off isn't there. Like, we don't know, and that's what's brilliant. I think for me, I need to try and keep my purse strings tight. I need to kind of not make any FOMO decisions. I'm going to probably tell myself that I'm not buying anybody for the off season, and probably 10 minutes before the Super Bowl, I'm going to buy. That's usually how I work. I go against my strategic plan and just, you know, hit the fuck it button and go for it. So who knows? What's your thoughts on that? Do you think we see buys, sales, flat?
I genuinely have no idea what to expect. I think that I'm just going to keep buying the guys that I think will be helpful in the future, whether that is because of share price rise or that I think they're just good players for next season and I want to have more shares of them. I think I'll probably just put my head in the sand and just buy the guys that I want and just hope that I come out in July and August in a better spot.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we might as well wrap it up there. Then it's been an episode of random thoughts and conversation and covering a bit of football, a touch of the NFL, and of course the fun token. Thank you everybody for listening. We've been just over an hour, which is absolutely perfect. Next week we should have, touch wood, a special guest in Geordie from the SportDotFun team. So we'll be talking all things marketing and again looking at a little bit of the future and what they plan. So exciting episode. Thank you all for listening, and we'll be back next week.